Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you my design for raised beds that have these kind of vine boxes on the side. So these are 20 inches tall. So these are a little bit nice. Like I'm in my 40s now, so I'm starting to think about what it's going to look like to be gardening, when I can't bend over as easily. So these are nice because they're a bit taller. But the planting boxes, they're closed on the top board, but they actually go underneath, so the roots can go down and under in these vine boxes. And then I'm also going to build ones that are only one board high, and show you how that's done. I've got these T-bar trellises built into the two board high ones, and I have this sort of custom built um, irrigation system that's really super easy to build. Um, so let's get into it. I'm going to show you how I built all this stuff today. I've got these 2 by 10 by 8 feet Doug fir boards. They're a little bit more expensive. My understanding is that Doug fir is a little bit more rot resistant than something like pine, and it's, even though it's less rot resistant than cedar, so it's sort of like that compromise between rot and whatever. And I got them a little bit thicker, 2 inches, to sort of hope that the rot won't go all the way through them. Now you're probably not going to want to use treated wood for this, because treated wood is filled with poison to kill insects, and you don't want to be vegetable gardening around treated wood. So this is untreated Doug fir. So let's get to work. So we're going to make the raised beds 8 by 4. That's a nice size to kind of work around in terms of gardening, but it also makes it really easy. If you buy 8-foot boards, you just have to cut them in half. So you really don't need a lot of skill to be able to do this. So we just mark the halfway point, 4 feet, and make the cut, right? And these are raised beds that we're going to fill with soil, so if you don't have a miter saw, you can easily do this by hand. It doesn't have to be the straightest cut in the world, but this definitely makes it faster. Okay, to make those sort of vine boxes that are going to come up the sides and take advantage of the fact that a raised bed has some three-dimensional structure to it, we're going to put those on the north side of my raised beds. So I'm going to put it in one of the backs. I'll do some on the side, but for the back, what I want to do is have it centered, I've decided, right? So this is 4 feet. Center point would be 24 inches. And remember that a 2 by 10 is actually 9 1/4. So that means that we need to come in 19 3/8 on either side, and what we'll end up with is cutting out a perfect square, which we can then make a diagonal cut on and use to make our triangular kind of raised pot situation. So 19 3/8, 19 3/8. So cut out that square. There we go. So this is getting cut out, and it's ultimately going to, when we put the box together, this will be missing. So there'll be a gap here that the vines can root down in underneath the rest of our vegetables. Okay, and then this square that we took out, I want to cut that into 2 triangles. Now this has a laser on it, which makes this pretty easy to do, but you could just as easily use a square to draw the line. Now, definitely want to be careful with something like this. A clamp might be a good idea. Okay, so once you've got the square cut out of the ends, you've made it into triangles, what we're going to do is we're going to attach one to each of the back pieces like this. So this is going to be the bottom, and this is going to be the top where the plant's ultimately going to go, and we'll have a 9-inch hole in here. So you can connect these lots of different ways. Screws, whatever you want. I'm actually going to use the framing nailer that I bought for my horizontal fence project, if you've seen that. So I've got this framing nailer, and I've got 2 3/8 inch nails just sort of left over from that project, and it's going to come in handy for this build. So again, you know, we're going to fill this with dirt. It doesn't have to be perfect like a lot of builds, because we're just going to fill it with dirt. Definitely make sure you don't nail your finger on the other side. So for every box that you want to have one of these vine things coming out the side, you need to make 2 of these on either end, and we'll put those together in a second. Now, you do have to pay attention to how you put these together if you want them to line up when you take the 2 pieces out. The first one I nailed, I put together like this. For the second one, I got to nail it on this other side. Trust me, if you don't do it this way, they're not going to line up. You're going to have 2 pieces. One's going to end up upside down when you go to put them together. So definitely, if you put one in on one side, make sure you do the other one on the other side, or your geometry is not going to work out. Okay, so my boxes are going to be 2 boards high, right? And we've already built the bottom part with triangles that are 9 1/4 on each side. So we basically just took the square and cut it up the diagonal. Now what we want to do is we want to extend that out into sort of, I don't know, a pentagon type shape. So what we need then is to cut this to double that, 18 1/2. We're going to need 2 of those, and then we'll add the diagonal so that when we put all this together, we'll end up with something that has an opening for our plant and that the diagonal lines up with the other one. So let's get that cut. Good, so now what we want to do is put in the diagonal. And what we want is for that to come right to the corner. So you can just, again, I've got a laser so you can line it up, or you could use a square for this. And this could potentially be used to make more boxes. So there you go, you end up with this sort of strange 4-sided trapezoid type shape. So we need 2 of those. Alright, so here's how we're going to put this end together. Here are the pieces that we made a second ago. I've used the square to mark where I want the next pieces to go. And then here are these other strange kind of trapezoids we made. So the idea is we are going to put this together like this. Have a nice straight line. This is the bottom, and this is where you're going to put your plant in the top. I'm also going to take these 4x4s, which I have left over from when I did my fence build, and I'm going to put them on the outside, right? Again, these are treated because I was building the fence. You don't want that treated wood with your vegetables. I mean, modern treated wood is just copper, but you know, copper can be toxic at high levels. It is a micronutrient, but you don't want enormous amounts. So we're going to make sure these are on the outside. It's just going to add some structural integrity to the fact that we've cut this in half. We'll do the same on the other side, and that's how we're going to put this together. So let's get that done. Good. So what we need to do next is make the piece that's going to go in between these. You could use trusty old Pythagorean theorem, or you could just measure it. So we need, looks like, well, let's do 28 inches, and then we can take the 45 degrees off so everything's nice and square. Okay, and then the last piece is this one that's going to go in between. And again, this will be facing the bottom. This will be the top. Sorry, everyone, it's autumn, so of course everyone in the world has their leaf blower going. I don't know what to do about that. What I've done here is I've cut 45-degree angles on my table saw. This isn't necessary, but I don't know. I'm an anal builder. This isn't necessary, but I like to make everything nice and square. There you go. That's what it looks like down inside. So our vines will plant it here. The roots will go down underneath almost everything else and into the ground. And we'll be able to make use of the fact that we have a third dimension in our vegetable garden. Alright, so we've still got the leaf blower chorus going on in the background. So here's how we're going to put these together. I've got lots of these 4x4s that are from the top of my fence build. We're going to put those on the outside and just use it to sort of strengthen the box so that it's not just this part that's holding it together, it's a little bit more substantial. So yeah, basically now it's just, after you've made as many of those sort of vine boxes that I just showed you, it's just a matter of nailing this all together as a series of boxes, which I think is pretty straightforward. So let's get that done. So here's one box finished for the outside. You can see I've been straw bale gardening for many years. It's November now, and I'm hoping to keep my tomatoes alive a little bit, so there's still a bale down inside. But you can see here's my basic idea all put together for one box. So this is the back of my garden. You can have one vine crop that comes out and goes away from everything else on the back, and another on the side that can go out in two directions, and that's it. So the idea is I'm going to build 3 of these boxes. The outer 2 are going to be like this but mirrored, and then the middle one's only going to have one on the back. We'll take a look at what that looks like. when it's all done. Future board here. Apparently I didn't film any kind of transition footage. So the next thing we're going to do is put together the shorter beds, the ones that are only one board high, that don't have the vine boxes in them because they're too small. So let's get into that. So the way I'm going to put this together, I've got these 4x4 bits of scrap left over from when I built my fence. Probably don't need these. You could just, bolt these together as a box, but I'm going to use these just to give this a little bit more solid footing on the side. So we're going to put it together like this, and like this, so that the short end is sort of sticking out. These are treated, and so the treated wood is going to be outside of the soil. So you could screw this together. It's probably the easiest thing to do for a DIYer. You probably have a cordless drill, but I am going to use my framing nailer just because it's a little bit quicker. Okay, so there you go. And one problem with raised beds is you have to fill them with something. And so I'm going to suggest that you consider starting with compost. It's autumn right now, so these are going to sit here until spring. That in this part of the country, there's actually a significant amount of time for things to decompose in the winter. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start with corrugated cardboard, which I had actually used to sort of smother some stuff in my garden, smother some turf in the front. I'm going to put down some corrugated cardboard. It's completely compostable. I've got some old hay bales that are rotten, got those for free, and I've got all the leaves from my yard. So we're just going to pile those in, make a big heap that can compost over the winter, and that should be good. You want to make sure that it's just, brown corrugated cardboard, nothing with, fancy printing or colors or anything like that. But this is completely compostable. You can see it's already partially composted because I used it to smother some turf for some garden beds I'm making elsewhere. Next, the rotten straw. And then some leaves. All right, so here's a shot from the upstairs window the following spring. What you'll notice is that I've kind of dug out to start putting pavers in all around the garden. So there's black landscape fabric down, and you can see a few pavers are already down. I really wanted an impermeable surface around my garden. I didn't want to have to get in there with the mower, and I didn't want something like gravel that would eventually fill up with weeds. So I decided to use pavers. And an advantage of this is that you have to dig down 3 or 4 inches. So here you can see one of the corners where I've dug down. In the front, you see some of the steel edging that I used to keep the lawn away. And I basically took all of that soil that I had to excavate and I put it inside the raised bed. So you can see soil on the sort of top right, and you can see some of the compost on the bottom left. And here's what it looked like, right? I was able to really fill up the things with soil. Now, you definitely want to make sure that your soil is safe to grow stuff in, right? So maybe get a lead test before you do this. I was lucky in that my soil was good to go. And so to be honest, I think it was probably a wash between the amount of topsoil I would have had to buy and the cost of the pavers themselves, which are just really $2 or $3 each. So to install those, once you've excavated out, you put down a layer of gravel, right, a little bit lower than the pavers are themselves, and you kind of tamp that down. I'll put a link to some better videos, and yeah, so it gets filled with gravel, and you can then start putting in the pavers. So you can already see there's some squash planted here in one of the vine boxes that I designed. And yeah, here's what it looks like with the pavers in. It's not perfect, right? This is not a patio, so it's not going to be up to like, patio grade, but it's perfect for what I wanted, a flat, impermeable surface around the entire garden. But I also wanted a place where my vines could grow and develop and not have to worry about touching the soil. So it kind of helps keep disease off of pumpkins and squash and melons because they're on the pavers and not on raw soil. Um, Here's a shot of the whole garden with all the pavers in. You can see I even have room for some small containers. I don't really do that anymore, but I was playing around with growing potatoes in containers. And then, yeah, here's a shot much later in the summer. So those are the biggest peppers I've ever had. You can see a vine creeping in between the boxes, which is exactly what I wanted. You can walk around it if you need to. They're not on the floor, but they're also not on top of the rest of my vegetables. So this bed, I think, had beets all through it in the front, and it had peppers in the back. You can see vines on either side of it growing happily amongst the pavers. And what you can see is the half-inch PVC pipe for the irrigation system I built. But I'm going to talk about the irrigation system in a separate video. So I've used these raised beds for 2 growing seasons now, and they've just been incredibly productive. I'm super happy with how the vine boxes on the sides worked out. The vines run all around the sides of the garden. They don't compete with the other plants, and I'm really happy with the way this turned out. So let me know what you think about this design, and if you choose to do something similar, or if you know of something similar. I think that people don't take enough advantage of the three-dimensional nature of raised beds enough, and that's what I wanted to do with this video. So if you like this, please consider sharing it and hitting and liking the video. It also really helps me to have more subscribers so that I can potentially keep growing the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.